The main character of the story is a young man named Yuya. Although he isn't handsome, he is an extremely kind-hearted guy. Yuya listened to his parents teaching that he should treat people in difficulty well. So when he saw a girl being bullied by thugs, he couldn't ignore this injustice and stepped forward, telling these troublemakers not to do such things. But when they saw Yuya's pathetic appearance, not only did they look down on him, they ganged up on him. Fortunately, the police arrived just in time, causing them to run away. The girl Yuya saved was very concerned and told him to lean on her shoulder. But Yuya was shy around girls and didn't care, silently turning away. He knew full well that his ugly appearance made people around him irritated, and he was aware of his own status. That's why in elementary school, he was often mocked by classmates, and at home, Yuya was also despised by his parents. Just because the family had two cute younger siblings, he wasn't treated as a human being. In middle school, Yuya always had to endure beatings from bullies. During those painful years, only his grandfather loved him, so Yuya always remembered everything his grandfather taught him before he died. When his grandfather passed away, all his assets were left to his pitiful grandson, but Yuya's parents still tried to contest the inheritance. However, they were powerless because the grandfather had arranged everything thoroughly for Yuya. When they couldn't do anything more, they abandoned Yuya. He had to work part-time to survive, but fate hadn't spared Yuya a single day. In high school, he was still despised and insulted by his peers. His classmates turned Yuya into a punching bag and errand boy. Whenever they had nothing to do, they would drag him out for entertainment. Meanwhile, his two younger siblings would look at their brother and flash contemptuous smiles. Because he was bullied so frequently and was always the last to leave school, he often arrived late for work. His boss immediately fired him. His life was truly at the bottom of society. When he got home, he couldn't even swallow the cup of instant noodles in his hand. And when he saw his face in the mirror, Yuya couldn't hold back his anger and punched it repeatedly. He punched and cursed at life, which had made him suffer like this for so many years. What hope did he have left in this world? But accidentally, Yuya's punch opened the door to a secret room. Curious, Yuya went inside and realized this was where his grandfather kept his strange collections. His grandfather had traveled everywhere and brought back strange things as souvenirs. At the end of the room, there was a strange door that made Yuya curious. He opened the door and saw an unusual place before him. Stepping through, he found information guiding beginners. It was just like entering a game, but this place was shown to be another world, and he could return to his real world normally. So he decided to explore this place. Afterward, there was a note explaining that the owner of the old house had died, so whoever found this place could become the new owner. This place was inviolable, so it was the safest. And in this world, he could use magic. After that, Yuya checked everywhere and then went outside to clear his head. At the same time, he looked at the scenery of this world. Having power, why not enjoy it to the fullest? But being new, he was still a bit clumsy, though he received some skills here, and any weapon here was powerful. And when he got tired of playing, he also had an item chest for convenient storage. But just as he was about to put away the last weapon, there was a sound outside that startled him with fear. A level 300 monster was trying to enter to test him. He saw that this barrier was quite hard, because it was an area that couldn't be destroyed except by the owner. The horned monster uprooted a tree to throw and destroy it, but it was still ineffective. Faced with such a ferocious monster, Yuya didn't dare to move. But when he realized he was holding a spear in his hand, he thought and directly threw it at the monster. As a result, the monster was like a donut with a huge hole in its stomach, then rolled over on the ground. The spear also returned to Yuya's position, and a notification appeared, showing he had reached level 100 after eliminating the monster. Moreover, this monster also dropped many items with extremely powerful stats. When he returned to the room, he was also rewarded. After completing the monster slaying mission, feeling that he had played enough, Yuya decided to go home and rest. After all, he still had to go to school tomorrow. During the night, Yuya's body transformed. In the morning, his clothes weren't as tight as before, making him think he was having a nightmare. But when dawn came, Yuya realized his ugly appearance had changed. Now he had become a handsome young man with a six-pack. He was about to look in the mirror, but remembered he had punched it broken yesterday. To him, he still thought his face was hateful, and he had no desire to look at it again. After that, he returned to the otherworldly house to explore. Around this place, many plants that he didn't know were grown. There was even a type of grass that could cure all diseases. If he brought it back to the real world, he would surely become very rich. Just at this moment, a monster came to disturb him, so Yuya immediately took out a hot weapon from his chest. With just one throw of his spear, the slime immediately evaporated, and the item it dropped was a necklace. As soon as he wore the necklace, he gained the sensing skill. His level also increased accordingly, and was now at level 150. After slaying monsters, he had money to spend, so he immediately went to design a new outfit. Now that he was rich, he couldn't let himself look shabby like before. From then on, Yuya went to the other world every day to explore. The meals were already prepared, so his standard of living just kept improving. He even ate all the jelly from that slime. And as on every day here, he went out to slay monsters to earn a little extra money. This time, Yuya's opponent was a goblin lord, so it was a bit challenging. Still using the throwing spear method, he blew off the goblin's head and made it evaporate. After storing the items from the monster, he realized that perhaps his level was too high, so it was difficult to level up further. He also returned to the real world to go to school. After all, he was still preparing for graduation. Because the mirror at home was broken, Yuya still thought he was a dirty, fat guy. But when he arrived at school, every girl looked at him like a star. When he entered the classroom, the bullies came up to check on Yuya, thinking he was a new student, so they asked a few questions. But when they heard him say his name was Yuya, the whole class, along with his two siblings, could only gape in astonishment, because the filthy pig from before had now become extremely handsome. Yuya then ran to the bathroom to check again. He couldn't believe the appearance he thought was dog-gnawed could change like this. Outside the school gate, a girl had come to find Yuya, and when she saw Yuya, she thought he had just finished losing weight. Yuya wondered how she knew his name, so she introduced herself as Caori, and she was the person he had saved before at the convenience store. At this point, Yuya remembered, so she continued that she wanted to invite him to Ostro Academy, a place only for outstanding students, because Caori's father was the principal of this academy. When he learned that Yuya had saved Caori from the thugs, he decided to invite him to the academy. Yuya immediately declined, thinking he wasn't qualified to enter such a dignified place. Seeing this, Yuya's two siblings were secretly delighted, turning to say, "Give this invitation to us," but Caori replied that she couldn't let those who insulted Yuya enroll in his place. Also, because all their previous disrespectful behaviors had been investigated by her, the two could only kneel on the ground in disappointment. Caori added that this academy valued academic ability, so he could enroll comfortably without worrying about anything. Seeing Yuya still hesitating, Caori pulled his hand and took him to the car right away. His two useless siblings could only feel bitter and couldn't do anything. When he arrived at the academy, Yuya saw that all the students here were excellent, giving him a feeling of inferiority, thinking that a loser like him didn't belong here at all. Anyway, his previous life was quite miserable, so feeling inferior was understandable. Yuya then went to meet the principal of the academy, and suddenly, he bowed his head to thank Yuya for bravely saving his daughter before. Yuya's action showed that this school always emphasized the human factor, so Yuya could study here comfortably without thinking too much, but he still thought that one had to be a genius to study here. However, for the principal, each person has a special talent, so Yuya didn't need to lower himself but should develop and enjoy life here. After hearing these words, Yuya suddenly remembered the encouragement of his grandfather. The principal felt that suddenly inviting Yuya to enroll didn't seem quite right, so he let him experience a class here first. Just at this moment, a beautiful teacher named Sawada entered. It was very convenient, so the principal asked Sawada to help Yuya. To have an experience session in her class, Sawada promised to guide Yuya thoroughly and carefully. But Sawada was still very worried before he entered the classroom. Because her class was full of outstanding students, she didn't know if they would laugh at him. Hearing Miss Sawada call made him even more nervous, and when Yuya entered, he greeted the students in the class. Then Yuya was very surprised when everyone gaped at him. It turned out they were all stunned by his extremely handsome appearance. The teacher then arranged a seat for him at the back of the class, and the person sitting next to Yuya was a cold-looking girl named Yuki. Thanks to the teacher's reminder, Yuki pulled her desk over for Yuya to see together. But looking at her attitude, he thought that on his first day of school, he was already disliked. Caori was very worried about whether Yuya could get along with the class or not. Meanwhile, Yuya was very interested in Miss Sawada's lesson. He felt that these were extremely interesting experiences that he had never known before. When it was break time, All the female students crowded around to ask if he had a girlfriend yet. Seeing Yuya being bothered by everyone, a friend named Ryo came to rescue him. The two afterward became friends and went down to the cafeteria to have lunch together. Just seeing all the free delicious food, Yuya felt that this place was truly a paradise. And after choosing a meat dish, the two sat at the same table with a bespectacled friend named Shiro. Coincidentally, these two also shared the same hobby as Yuya, which was anime. So Yuya listened very attentively to their story. At this point, Yuya noticed that the entire cafeteria was being attracted by his presence. Ryo explained that it was because Yuya's face was too handsome, so he got the attention of the girls. Shiro said that this school was very relaxed with students. He even brought his game console to school without fear of being scolded by any teacher. When he knew that Yuya also liked to play games, Shiro immediately invited him to play together. After a day of experiencing life here, Yuya returned to the principal's office. Although still feeling inferior, after hearing the encouragement from the principal, Yuya decided to study at this prestigious school. Just as he went outside, he met Caori again, and she was very happy to know that Yuya had agreed to enroll. And before leaving, Caori wanted to invite him to go play somewhere. Because of Kaori's status as the principal's daughter, she rarely had friends to go with, so Caori was very happy when Yuya accepted her invitation. Yuya then went to choose food for both of them to enjoy, but he didn't dare to eat much for fear of returning to his previous fat shape. At this point, Yuya wondered how Caori had recognized him then, and Caori replied that although Yuya's appearance had changed, she would never forget his straightforward eyes. Caori spoke while staring at Yuya's face, making him very shy. As for Caori, she already considered Yuya her best friend, so the two afterward ate cake together, no different from a newly in love couple, making the people around look at them with great admiration. Yuya knew that soon when transferring schools, he would be very busy, so as soon as he got home, Yuya immediately got dressed to enter the other world. The slimes from before were now easily defeated by Yuya, but their levels were a bit low, so Yuya didn't gain much. Seeing that around the house now there were only weak monsters, Yuya decided to leave this place to go into the forest. He always believed that in places far from here, there would be huge monsters. Just as he opened the door to go out, Yuya was surprised to hear a very loud scream from the forest, so he immediately took out his spear and ran in to check, discovering that a group of people had been killed, and in front of him now was a large goblin with a level of 200. It was about to slaughter a girl, but before that happened, it shifted its attention to Yuya. It also began to approach to play with him. For a kind-hearted person like Yuya, he couldn't abandon this girl, so he also rushed up to play with it right away. Although it had knocked away Yuya's spear, he had jumped up and given it a kick to the face. Unexpectedly, this caused the monster to collapse, and its face even had the imprint of his shoe. Thinking that the monster was dead, he was about to go check on the injured girl, but it suddenly stood up and gave Yuya a sword strike, causing him to block the attack but be thrown against a tree trunk. Indeed, high-level monsters could not be underestimated. Seeing that this spear wasn't strong enough, Yuya took out his infinite arrow bow to attack the monster. Then came the omnipotent sword, and with just one slash, this monster vanished. At this point, Yuya went to check on the girl, but she only managed to see his figure before fainting. Yuya was about to do something to save her, but he heard the sound of soldiers calling her name in the distance, so he immediately used invisibility to hide somewhere so they could take her away. Although the girl had been rescued, Yuya still felt a bit worried, not knowing if those people would take her out of the forest safely. But thinking about others also means thinking about himself, as he now needed to buy new clothes since his current ones were almost worn out. When he went to the shopping center to find something to wear, because always wearing white shirts and dress pants wasn't good at all eyes turned toward Yuya. They thought he was some movie star. Seeing people whispering and buzzing, he had to cover himself up. Otherwise, if they gathered around him, it would be too much for his introverted nature. At that moment, a man in a pink shirt was scolding his staff for working slowly and without discipline. Even the male model didn't know how to schedule and was late. In short, it was wasting time, so he was frustrated. Meanwhile, the female model was still putting on makeup because the photo shoot was about to start. Seeing there was no time left, Hikaru decided to find someone temporarily to replace the irresponsible male model. As for Yuya, he was busy looking for an outfit, wanting to change himself to look a bit more handsome, but not knowing which one would be suitable. Suddenly, two curious-looking girls ran up to persuade Yuya to go shopping with them. Thinking they might be trying to trick him somehow, Yuya had to decline their sweet invitation. But his rejection was so smooth that both girls' hearts fluttered. Even after Yuya had walked away for a while, these two were still dazed. Meanwhile, the man in the pink shirt had been looking all over the shopping center but still couldn't find anyone suitable. Until he spotted Yuya choosing a shirt for himself and stood behind him. Now there was no way to escape. So Hikaru agreed to work with the production company to create some very beautiful photos. A talented man and a beautiful woman, they were perfectly in sync. And Yuya was also taken care of attentively by the female senior model. It was his first time witnessing a girl's soul. Just staring intently was bad enough. And then suddenly, her soul was pressed right up against him. So it was his first time feeling that soft thing. The work session was just incredibly pressured. Meanwhile, the princess who had been rescued was entranced with her savior, remembering the hero who had saved her. So she decided to go outside to find his image, making her security guards extremely worried. But this girl was extremely stubborn. On the other side, after a day of work, Yuya felt quite tired. Seeing this, the girl lent him a handkerchief to wipe his sweat. It was his first time experiencing such things, so he couldn't help himself. Holding a girl's item made him so tense. Yuya had shown great admiration for Mayu's efforts in her modeling career, so he asked why she had become attracted to such a demanding job. Mayu didn't hesitate to sit down with him and share, saying that in her life, her parents were always busy and rarely cared about her, so she had become a model to get more attention from people. Fortunately, afterward, she had many fans who cared for her and sent her well wishes, so Mayu always felt happy and tried hard in her work to repay everyone's kindness toward her. Hearing this, Yuya felt that Mayu was quite similar to him. So after that, the two chatted very happily together. These moments were all captured by Hikaru, each and every moment. A scene of beautiful, happy people. Just then, the irresponsible male model arrived. Since he was also famous, he had quite a few female fans. The girls there cheered loudly, but Mayu didn't like this guy at all. He even said disrespectful things about the photo shoot, which made Hikaru hear and feel quite annoyed. After asking Mayu a few questions, he pushed her against the wall and delusionally thought of himself as a big shot, then tried to seduce her to go drinking, as he was confident that he was more famous than her and was a veteran. When Yuya saw Mayu being pressured, he stood up to intervene. So the man, relying on his little martial arts knowledge, wanted to teach Yuya a lesson. But Yuya just needed to dodge lightly and then pinned him to the ground, causing everyone around to freeze for a few seconds. Yuya didn't understand why this guy moved so slowly, and he had accidentally thrown him to the ground too hard. He suddenly felt worried, afraid of being cursed at by the people around for hitting a famous model like him. But because Yuya had just been so cool, they had switched to admiring him instead of that useless show-off. He was still acting like he was on drugs, not understanding, and despite knowing some boxing, he still couldn't beat Yuya. After Hikaru heard this guy disrespect the job, he fired him right away. He was also certain that from now on, no company would want to hire him anymore. And Mayu also thanked Yuya very much for stepping in to help her, because lately, she had always been flirted with and bothered by him. At this point, Hikaru asked Yuya if he was interested in modeling. He thought Yuya was very talented and suitable for this job. Plus, if Yuya came to work for Hikaru, he wouldn't have to worry about income anymore. However, Yuya politely declined and said that today he had a valuable experience, but he was just a part-timer, so he couldn't take on this job. After hearing this, Hikaru respected Yuya's decision. And to compensate Yuya, he gave him many designer clothes. Although he should have paid in cash, because the company was a bit complicated, he gave him the clothes instead. At first, Yuya was still a bit hesitant because the clothes were quite expensive, but seeing the pink-shirted man being so enthusiastic, he felt awkward refusing. So Yuya thanked Hikaru very much for the gift, and before leaving, he also didn't forget to wish Mayu continued success in her career. After parting with Yuya, Hikaru felt quite regretful because he thought Yuya would become a star. With such a handsome and tall appearance, it wouldn't take long to become famous. But this kid wasn't interested in entertainment at all. As for Mayu, she seemed to miss Yuya very much. She also wished to meet Yuya again and work with him once more. After hearing this, Hikaru realized that Mayu had been struck by love at first sight. Yuya returned home and arranged the clothes he had just received. After that, he felt a bit guilty, as he had just done a little photo shoot but received a pile of very nice clothes. Then he set off again to the other world to level up. Meanwhile, a team of knights was fighting against goblins to help the princess find Yuya. Because there were too many and they were too ferocious to control, one of them was about to go and slaughter her. Fortunately, Yuya arrived just in time to save the stubborn princess from danger. And when witnessing each of Yuya's sword movements, the princess couldn't help but be amazed. Look at this handsome guy, it would be hard for your heart not to beat faster. Next was a spear that caused the last goblin to vanish in the blink of an eye. Yuya then used items to treat the wounds of the soldiers, and in front of the knight team, the princess went to Yuya with a very serious face to talk to him. Getting straight to the point, she wanted to marry him right away, fearing another woman might steal him, which confused Yuya and everyone there. At this point, his photos were brought back. Seeing his shining potential, everyone really wanted to find him. The assistant was instructed to find him no matter what. Otherwise, if another company stole him, it would be a total waste. The knight captain, Owen, was very confused when Princess Licia had just met Yuya and already demanded to marry this young man. Moreover, with such a noble royal status, she had uttered such a simple marriage proposal. But the princess immediately retorted that this was love at first sight. Was there any objection? Yuya realized that if they kept arguing like this, monsters would come. So he invited them to his house to play and talk as much as they wanted. Owen couldn't believe that in the great magical forest full of monsters, there was a house like this. When Yuya learned that Licia was the first princess, he was extremely surprised, afraid that he might be punished for speaking too naturally with her. At this point, Yuya also introduced his name to the two people. Hearing his name sounded very strange, the princess immediately thought that this young man was a foreign nobleman. The captain thought he was a spy sent into this country, but when he reconsidered, someone with such a handsome appearance couldn't possibly be a spy. The captain added that he and the princess had come to this forest to find him, because the princess said that she had been saved by someone before, so she had to come here to thank him. And today, when meeting Yuya, she couldn't hold back her feelings anymore. Since meeting him, her heart had always been racing, to the point of wanting to marry him right away. So she once again proposed to marry Yuya. Receiving such an unexpected proposal made Yuya a bit scared, so he had to decline. But the princess wasn't discouraged. She wanted to start with friendship with Yuya first, and then marrying him later wouldn't be too late. Hearing the words friends, Yuya was very touched, because in the past, his friends often turned him into a punching bag. But now, before the princess's sincere eyes, he shook hands and accepted her offer right away. Owen saw the two being very intimate and gently reminded the princess that since they had finished their business, they should go home. As for Yuya, he said that the king also wanted to thank him, so another time, they would come to pick him up to the capital. Being an order from the king, it couldn't be refused. Yuya then gave Owen an appointment for him to come pick him up. After that, he also said goodbye to the princess so she could return. Meanwhile, a prince was very angry because the plan to assassinate the princess had failed. His soldiers had been slaughtered by monsters in the great magical forest, but somehow, the princess still managed to survive. It seemed this person harbored a great hatred for the princess, so he was determined to make her pay. When Yuya got home, he scheduled the day to meet the king, and today was the day to start school, so he immediately dressed in stylish clothes to set off. As soon as he went outside, everyone gathered around to compliment him. By now, anyone who met Yuya would probably fall for him. When he arrived at school, he went up to the principal's office to meet him. The principal didn't know what else to say besides wishing him a beautiful student life at this academy. After that, Yuya went to class for the teacher to introduce him to his classmates once again. As soon as class was over, everyone switched to sports class. And in this soccer game, Ryo was the champion as he continuously scored goals like a professional player. Just then, a female classmate named Keed came to get acquainted with Yuya. Seeing Keed was very enthusiastic, Yuya befriended her and hoped for more help from her. On the field, Ryo and his teammates were still dominating their opponents. A blonde young man received the ball from Ryo, but when he kicked, he shot straight toward Keed. So Yuya immediately jumped high and kicked the ball straight into the goal before everyone's surprised eyes, then landed coolly and turned back to Keed to check on her. Needless to say, at this point, Keed's heart was already fluttering. The blonde young man, Akira, knelt down to apologize to Keed, vowing to dedicate his body to Keed to repay her for life. But Keed had already found someone she liked, so she had to reject Akira. After that, Akira got acquainted with Yuya and introduced himself as the young master of the academy. and from here, Yuya had more new friends. Yuya's class finished the physical education period, and then it was Caori's class's turn to start this subject. When she had just entered the changing room, everyone in Yuya's class was buzzing about him. Keed boasted that she was saved in a very cool way, which made Caori feel jealous inside when she heard it. So afterward, during physical education class, Caori waved to call Yuya because she was afraid that he might forget about her. Just then, some thugs crashed through the school gate with their motorcycles. They had surrounded the female students in Caori's class, making them extremely scared. On the upper side, Yuya's class was standing, watching down below. Someone informed that this was the Restock gang, a bunch of street thugs who controlled this area. When Yuya heard the name Restock, he realized that these guys might hang out with his two siblings. They were now standing in front of Caori and threatening her. It turned out these two wanted to finish her off because she had made them feel ashamed before. Although Caori had said she would call the police, these guys still surrounded her. Upstairs, Yuya suddenly looked very worried. It seemed fear was overwhelming Yuya's mind. Even though he had faced many monsters in the other world, Yuya slapped himself to stay alert and regain courage, then opened the window and jumped down. To the astonished eyes of everyone in the class, although he had just flown down from the 4th floor, Yuya landed very lightly. Then he rushed forward and confronted a guy named Ayaki, who had beaten him up before, thinking Yuya was still weak. He immediately ordered his subordinates to teach him a lesson. But Yuya moved very quickly and disarmed all their weapons. The guy Ayaki was also easily overcome by him. However, to save Caori, he had to defeat another gorilla-like guy from this gang. Although his body was very big, Yuya only needed to use one hand to block him. Then Yuya let go, causing him to headbutt into a motorcycle. Yuya approached Caori alone, and they didn't dare to do anything to him. The leader saw this and seemed quite irritated, so he drove his motorcycle toward Yuya. But he only needed to duck down to dodge, then jump high, making this guy just stare at him. So while not paying attention, he crashed into the steps of the house, causing the shabby motorcycle to explode. It wasn't until the afternoon that the local police arrived to arrest these thugs and take them to the station. Caori seemed very tired, so Yuya had to use his hand to support her. The two looked at each other shyly. While Yuya's two siblings were being led away by the police, the leader, being too angry, grabbed Yuya's younger brother by the collar, making the police just stand and watch, and the younger sister was kicked away to a corner by this guy. Seeing that this guy was no longer human, Yuya ran over and pushed his hand aside. He still wanted to settle the score with Yuya, but when he saw Yuya's eyes, he was scared stiff. At this point, the two siblings didn't understand why Yuya still saved them. Although they always hated him, Yuya said that he would never forgive them. But when the family was in danger, he couldn't abandon them. After hearing this, the two knelt down, sobbing and apologizing to him. As for Yuya's friends, seeing that he could jump down from the 4th floor, they showed great admiration. Thinking Yuya was a high jump genius, they all gathered around to ask him. Yuya prepared his gear and entered the other world to slay monsters. In his mind, he recalled the words of Knight Captain Owen. This great magical forest was considered an extremely dangerous place by the countries in the other world. Although Yuya could easily destroy monsters in this forest, if they appeared in herds, they could destroy an entire large city. And this great magical forest was where they lived. Yuya didn't understand why the sage chose to live here. Could it be that the old man's retirement dream was a thatched hut and a few monster hearts? When you open your eyes outside, you might encounter monsters all around. After a while of monster slaying, Yuya was about to go home to have a hearty meal. But at that moment, he heard a scream from afar. When he arrived, he saw a cute puppy being tortured by a giant pig. After using appraisal, Yuya saw that this monster had a very high level. The damage of the pig reached 20k, so he thought about turning back since there was no way to fight it. But when he recalled his grandfather's words, saving a life is better than building several houses, he couldn't watch it being beaten without saving it. If he couldn't defeat it directly, he'd try to chip away at its health. So he immediately took out his spear to throw at the wild pig, hoping to chip away at it as much as possible. Thinking this one was very strong, he tried to engage in close combat, but when he held his sword and rushed forward, it had already evaporated. Yuya didn't understand what kind of monster this was. He didn't expect himself to have such terrible strength. Recalling that previously, a level 300 giant ogre only needed one spear to die, so one spear was probably a bit excessive for this boar. He thought to himself that the sage's weapons were indeed overpowered, feeling a bit disappointed because he thought he would have to go through a life and death struggle. But first, he had to treat the puppy's wounds. Initially, it resisted due to instinct, but with just one bottle of medicine, the puppy's wounds were completely healed. So it was very grateful to Yuya and clung to him affectionately. Yuya opened the status panel to collect magical items, but when he checked the puppy's status, surprisingly, it was just a small dog. But its level was up to 500, along with extremely high stats too powerful. After that, the process of naming it began. Seeing its jet black fur, Yuya named it Nai. And so Nai became Yuya's companion, living day by day in a healing way together. However, he was still concerned about his own leveling up, but was still busy with school. He decided to bring Nai back to the real world to raise as his pet. But since he had never raised a pet before, he asked for advice from his classmates. Keed saw that Yuya had just adopted a puppy and seemed very curious, moving closer. Yuya felt the distance was too close, causing Keed to realize and feel extremely shy. After that, they wanted to see Yuya's cute pet, but he didn't have a smartphone, so he couldn't show everyone the photos. Then they mentioned that near the shopping center, there was a pet care shop. But today, Ryo was a bit busy, so he couldn't take Yuya there. Seeing this, Keed took the opportunity to invite Yuya to go together. This girl's intention was to go on a date with Yuya, so she was very happy inside. Thanks to Keed's company, Yuya was able to buy many things for Nai. And to take Nai for a walk, Yuya put on a collar chosen by Keed for it. Although it was just walking a dog, the girls around always paid attention to Yuya because of his handsome appearance. After that, they accidentally met Caori there. The two greeted each other, and Yuya also introduced his pet. Of course, Nai was quite well behaved, so this girl liked it very much. When asked what breed of dog it was, Yuya found it hard to say. He couldn't say it was a magical beast. They were talking quite happily with each other when suddenly, Mayu met him here, making everyone amazed at the scene. It turned out she also lived near this area and often walked in this park. Caori recognized that she was a quite famous model, so Yuya explained that by chance, he had the honor of working with her. After that, they introduced themselves to each other here. This scene made the people around even more amazed because they mostly knew Mayu since she was famous. Mayu very much hoped that he could regularly walk in this park, but due to the large number of fans arriving, Mayu quickly left. At this point, Caori asked Yuya if he was dating that beautiful older sister. She must be jealous now. Yuya denied this, saying he wasn't worthy of her, which made the little girl react strongly. Just then, a thief was being chased, so Nai quickly went to catch the criminal. Yuya and Caori went to check on the elderly lady who had been robbed because the thief couldn't escape from little Nai. The little dog dragged the thief like a dog, but because he heard they would call the police, he struggled. Then he took out a knife and rushed toward Caori. And this time, Yuya stepped in to protect her. Witnessing the handsome guy subduing the thief in a cool way, everyone around applauded appreciatively. As for Caori, she was very happy as this was the second time Yuya had helped her. After taking the thief to the police station to be locked up, Yuya immediately returned to the other world, and his goal this time was to go deeper inside. To conquer this dark forest, monster after monster was continuously eliminated by Yuya. Even his companion Nai managed to kill a giant pig. Seeing these seemed quite easy to handle. Yuya tried to find a monster that was a bit stronger. And going deeper, before him now was a deer with a level up to 630, and it could even use magic. Although Yuya had used invisibility to hide, it could still detect him, so Yuya had to appear to fight it head-on. The puppy rushed up to fight first, but the deer's antlers were too hard, so it couldn't do anything, and the deer could also cast magic, preventing Yuya from approaching. And next, it accumulated energy and released water-type magic, forcing Yuya to dodge, or he would die. Seeing that they couldn't eliminate this deer as easily as before, this time he and Nai had to coordinate to fight, while the deer continued to cast magic, causing the forest to be engulfed in flames. At this moment, the beloved puppy rushed from behind and hit the deer's weak point. Yuya took this opportunity to spear it, making it vanish immediately. Thanks to such strong monsters, Yuya had gained more combat experience. He thought to himself that such huge monsters must drop excellent items, but the result was just a bathtub. Life is indeed unpredictable. And when Yuya opened it, he was very surprised to see such a large bathtub. He immediately put it away and brought it back to the house to enjoy with his beloved dog. It would be inappropriate to keep it out in broad daylight. After that, soaking in the tub after a hard day's work was perfect. The next morning, he continued the work of monster slaying. This time, it was a hedgehog with a very strong attack speed and defense ability. Yuya carelessly got hit by its spines, causing his face to be injured. But he still encouraged himself not to worry. After that, Yuya and Nai tricked the hedgehog into attacking, causing its spines to get stuck in a rock. When the opportunity came, Yuya attacked the hedgehog's body, making it vanish. Fighting just a hedgehog was quite arduous. At this point, Yuya saw that he had reached level 240 and gained many new skills. Even Nai, when accompanying Yuya, was also leveled up with stats identical to his. Then coincidentally, the hedgehog from earlier had broken the rock, causing the cave entrance to collapse open. So both of them entered the cave out of curiosity to see what interesting things were inside. When going deep inside, suddenly the flames around lit up, allowing Yuya to see clearly to the end of the cave, where he saw a skeleton, all corpses. Along with that, Nai discovered a book, and on its cover, it was written that this was the sage's book. Yuya recognized this as the book of the owner of the house where he was staying. The book stated that the sage had become an omnipotent person, who had mastered everything in the world. Magic, martial arts, swordsmanship, even cooking, painting, and so on, had all reached the peak of society. He had even been invited to join the ranks of the gods. That's right, such a person in the outside world would stand at the top of the human chain. However, he had refused and chosen to live as a human. Just a thatched hut and many monster hearts. Because he was too talented, the sage lived in solitude until he died alone in a desolate place. The sage also added that Yuya's power was even more formidable than his. This would cause everyone around him to fear him, so he didn't want a kind-hearted person like Yuya to become isolated and live like him. As for Yuya, in his mind, he wanted to ask the sage how to make people around him accept him. Then the sage used telepathy to talk to him. Create close relationships with people around you, friends, parents, or lovers, whatever. Just having someone by your side and listening to your confessions, just that alone is more than enough for a lifetime. Yuya thought that recently, he had just made friends, so finding a soulmate was very difficult. Seeing this, the sage encouraged him, saying that as long as Yuya lived well, he would certainly find his soulmate. And he added that this book would answer anything Yuya wanted to know. So Yuya tried asking about magic. After that, the book suddenly lit up, and the sage said it would give him all his theoretical knowledge about magic. So the book said that everyone in this world generates magic power from their hearts, while people from other worlds like Yuya don't have magic channels. So the sage said he would give Yuya his own magic channel. Because anyway, if left there, it would just dissipate, which would be a waste. From the book, magical words came out and entered Yuya's body simply and quickly without elaboration. The sage hoped that Yuya would have a very happy life with this power. Yuya, seeing this, also thanked him and brought the book home. After reading the instructions, he also tried to follow them. First was how to sense magic in the surrounding air. After sitting still and touching his beating heart, the glow of magic emerged from within Yuya, and the status panel appeared to notify him. Having just received the skill to utilize magic, Yuya realized that this was the magic channel the sage had mentioned. And the next lesson was using magic power to cast spells. Yuya thought he needed incantations like in the cool movies he often watched, but life was much simpler than he thought. The book said, just accumulate magic power and then imagine the spell. And that's it. Simple, too elaborate would be tiring. So Yuya went to the yard to practice. In an instant, he created a very simple water ball. Beside him, Nai could also do exactly the same as Yuya, then attacked toward the forest, causing all the trees in front to be cut down. Meanwhile, when the knight captain reported to the king, he accidentally revealed the matter of the princess proposing to Yuya. So he immediately flew into a rage, demanding to slaughter Yuya immediately. Holding the sword in his hand, the king swung it everywhere and called Yuya a bastard. Yuya returned to the real world to go to school. Miss Sawada announced that soon the whole class would have an extracurricular training trip. Seeing that Yuya seemed not to understand, Yuki let him know that the whole class would have a 3-day, 2-night camping trip to train adaptation to new environments. Miss Sawada added that the whole class would have to be divided into groups of 4, and Yuya was assigned to a group with a Kiza, Keed, and a female student named Jin. Seeing that everyone in the group got along well, Keed was very much looking forward to this extracurricular training trip. As for Yuya, he was a bit worried because he didn't have a backpack. so Keed decided to invite everyone to go with Yuya to help him buy more things. Of course, going out with the group couldn't be without Caori along with Yuya's male friends. Seeing that Yuya had become acquainted with a prominent figure like Caori, Ryo couldn't help but be amazed. After all, she was the principal's daughter, so she always had a famous aura. Today, the shopping center was quite empty, so the group selected items very quickly without having to squeeze through crowds. So he also got a new backpack chosen by everyone. Yuya was very happy, and after finishing Yuya's business, since they were shopping, the girls naturally also got items. After that, his two friends invited the whole group to grab gifts, the thing where you spend a pile of money and might not get anything. But because there was an anime model that the four-eyed young man seemed to really like, Yuya decided to try grabbing it. Thanks to the observation skills from the other world, Yuya immediately recognized the weak point of the machine. So with just a few manipulations, he successfully grabbed the model box for his friend. Seeing this, Keed also asked Yuya to grab a stuffed cat for her. Yuya didn't hesitate to indulge everyone in the group, not missing anyone. As for Caori, she wanted a seal badge to wear on her chest. And when receiving thanks from Caori, Yuya also felt very happy inside. Since there was still a lot of time, the three girls invited each other to go upstairs to buy more things, while the three boys sat and rested at the cafe, waiting for them to return. Just at this moment, the center announced that there was a fire incident on the 10th floor. They began to panic because the three girls were still shopping on the 13th floor. Ryo immediately called, but only heard Keed say a few sentences, after which there was a frightening silence. Unable to wait any longer, Yuya immediately ran upstairs, so fast that the security guard couldn't stop him. In Yuya's mind at this moment, he was only thinking about how to protect the smiles of the three girls. When he reached the place, Yuya saw that the flames had surrounded everywhere. He couldn't just rush in. He immediately used magic to take water from the air to surround his body, then rushed straight inside to search for them. Before Caori fainted from smoke inhalation, she had seen Yuya rushing over. After using sensory magic, Yuya found that there was no one else in the building. Currently, there were only the three girls who had fainted, so he immediately thought of a way to bring them down. But at this point, the flames were too big, making Yuya unsure if his magic power could hold out. On his shoulder was Caori, and in his two hands were Jin and Keed. Feeling that running down would take too much time, Yuya used all his magic power to break through from the 13th floor, all the way down to the first floor. Before the astonished eyes of his two friends, Yuya had successfully saved all three girls. After that, Yuya still had to apologize to the fire department for daring to act so boldly. Caori's father also arrived and thanked Yuya for saving his daughter's life. Moreover, Caori's gift, the badge for her shirt, had been recovered by Yuya, so she was also very touched. Seeing the principal and his daughter hugging each other, Yuya also felt a bit sad, because he no longer had any relatives who cared for him like that. But Yuya's sadness was quickly dispelled because now he had Nai as a member of his family. Yuya recalled what was written in the book. When concretizing imagination along with magic power, one could cast spells. So he tried using teleportation magic and was immediately transported to the middle of the forest. Yuya was very happy because now he could go anywhere and come back to feed Nai whenever he wanted. However, the teleportation spell could only take him to places he had been before. Today, Yuya and Nai continued to explore another cave. Just as he saw goblins blocking the path, Yuya took out his sword and rushed up to fight. And after just a few sword strikes, these monsters also evaporated, dropping a bunch of items. After a while of fighting, both of them came back outside, because they had to go on an outdoor training trip with the class soon. Today they would only explore this far. Suddenly, Nai noticed something and ran straight into the forest. Thinking his pet was just playing around today, he urged it to quickly return. But seeing Nai's attitude, he used invisibility to go inside and check. When he arrived, he discovered a girl who was injured, and in front of her was a group of monsters waiting to eat her. But when Yuya was about to intervene, Nai stopped him. The girl was not ordinary either. Her weapons were razor-sharp threads that could cut anything they touched. However, these monsters were too many for her to resist, and after a kick from the biggest one, she flew straight into a tree trunk. The monsters began to celebrate their victory, then approached to slaughter the beautiful girl. At this moment, Yuya appeared, and one of his sword strikes split one in half, while Nai helped him clear out the remaining minions. Thinking they were about to go home, it turned out that Yuya had fallen into the goblin's lair. This time, he took out a hammer from his chest and found it to be incredibly powerful beyond imagination. One hit, and they vanished without much talk. And the item that the monster had just dropped was a hat that looked quite cool. After exterminating the monsters, Yuya took the girl home, protecting her from this dangerous forest. However, Nei showed opposition because this girl emitted a dangerous scent. The girl had now woken up and thought Yuya was going to do something bad to her. So she struggled violently and hit her head on a tree trunk, which hurt a lot. Yuya immediately took out a recovery potion and offered it to the girl. At first, she thought Yuya had put some dark substance inside, but after drinking it, all the wounds on her body healed, which surprised her very much. At this point, the girl introduced herself as Luna. She lied that she was training in the forest when she was suddenly attacked by those goblins, and when she learned that Yuya had defeated all the monsters to save her, Luna was very grateful. But when she asked why Yuya was in this dangerous forest, he also made up a story that he came here to train, so Luna wouldn't be suspicious. After hearing this, Luna was very excited because they both had the same purpose. But because she had been fighting with monsters, Luna was now dirty and drenched in sweat. Seeing this, Yuya invited Luna to try out his newly designed bathtub. Luna was bathing and marveling because it was the first time she had enjoyed something so comfortable. And Yuya also revealed that he had defeated the crystal deer to collect this bathtub. Luna was very surprised to hear that Yuya could fight such a strong monster. So she suggested going on explorations with Yuya in the coming time. Yuya thought that he couldn't let a beautiful girl wander in a forest full of monsters like this, so he accepted Luna's offer, making her extremely happy. From the next day, Yuya, along with Nai and Luna, went to sweep through monsters around the forest, and by noon, they all took a break to eat and regain strength. Thanks to Yuya's help, Luna now had more confidence to fight goblins. Yuya was very surprised that Luna could use her threads so skillfully. But the exploration of the two had to stop from today, because tomorrow, Yuya would go on a field trip with his class. After hearing this, Luna felt very regretful, so she wanted to do something to say goodbye to Yuya. After a day of exterminating monsters, Yuya soaked in the bathtub to forget his fatigue. At this moment, Luna also entered with just a bath towel, scaring Yuya so much that he had to think of a way to escape quickly. But Luna immediately hugged Yuya and thanked him for the past days of helping her, and the beautiful memories with Yuya made Luna not want to leave him at all. She was about to wash Yuya's back when he had to gently remind her that her bath towel had fallen off. Only then did Luna feel shy and didn't dare to let Yuya see anymore. The next morning, Yuya had a field trip with his class, perhaps because he had been too active last night. When playing cards, he was constantly yawning. Unable to withstand the sleepiness anymore, he told everyone to continue playing while he needed to take a nap first. Yuya didn't understand why, when playing cards, he also won continuously. Thinking about the scene yesterday with Luna, Yuya thought his luck was too great. When they arrived, the whole group called Yuya to wake up. As soon as he got off the bus, Yuya was very impressed because the residence of the whole class was a large building. Miss Sawada reminded the whole class to quickly change clothes and gather in the hall to hear the training content. Actually, this was a camping trip for everyone to practice living independently as well as surviving in the wild. Food from the mountains and forests like mushrooms, wild vegetables, or fish had to be actively searched for, while food like rice would be prepared by Miss Sawada in advance. After hearing this, Keed felt very worried because she was afraid that some mushrooms might be poisonous, but Sawada said that she would personally check those things, and if anyone got poisoned, there was the medical teacher, Yumikawa, to take care of everything. But this lady looked very gloomy, making all the students' hair stand on end. Miss Sawada added that this was a competition between classes, and if any class achieved high results, the homeroom teacher would be rewarded. After hearing this, the students felt a bit discouraged because it turned out they were trying just for the homeroom teacher. They couldn't even sleep in the house at night, but had to camp in the forest. Because no one in Yuya's group had ever had to survive like this, they were very confused. And after a while of assigning tasks, Akira and Jin would go to pick mushrooms in the forest. Yuya and Keed would go fishing by the stream. Seeing that there was no more space here, the two had to go to another place. Although there were many fish here, the water was too shallow, making it a bit difficult to fish. Yuya recalled Luna's words that animals that fear humans just need to have their movements read, and they can be caught easily. So Yuya went down to the stream and used his bare hands to grab each fish without needing to fish with a rod. In no time, the bucket was full of fish. making the whole class praise and admire him. Keed had to remind Yuya to stop, or her stomach wouldn't be able to eat it all. Meanwhile, after training with Yuya, Luna had become much stronger. But actually, she was an assassin from the Shadow Organization with the nickname Manhunter. And the handsome Yuya was the target she was aiming for. Luna regretted that if she had met Yuya earlier, the fate of the two would have been different. But currently, as they were enemies, she definitely had to eliminate him. Yuya and Keed also returned and brought along a bunch of fish, which made Jin a bit surprised, because he could use his bare hands to catch this amount. Looking over at Akira, he saw him with his buttocks facing the sky. He must have just been visited by some black bears. When asked, they learned that Akira had just been bait for bears. He was even made to eat mushrooms by Jin to test for poison. After hearing this, Yuya felt very worried and wanted to run to check Akira's condition. But after using appraisal, fortunately, Akira would still live for a while longer. Seeing Yuya care about him, suddenly Akira was touched and wanted to love this friend right away. After that, the whole group prepared things for cooking. With the ingredients just collected, they could cook something. Thanks to his appraisal skill, Yuya saw that they all had no problems. Fortunately, he had this skill. Otherwise, encountering poisonous grass would be dangerous for the whole group. But still having to listen to Miss Sawada, they all brought it to her for appraisal before they could cook and put it in their mouths. And when he arrived here, Yuya met Caori again, so the two asked about each other's situation. It looked no different from a couple playing a vague game with each other. Akira, standing nearby, couldn't help but be jealous. It turned out that this friend always had a desire to talk to Caori and worshipped her as a princess. Jin added that Caori had a very elegant demeanor, and being the principal's daughter was indeed a big deal. So many boys had considered her the princess of the academy. After examining all the ingredients that the students had collected, Miss Sawada said that all the vegetables from Yuya's group were edible. And when she saw that her students were very talented, Sawada was secretly delighted. This time, the bonus would certainly belong to her. This lady was indeed full of conspiracies. The next question was to ask the students who had cooking talent, and everyone pointed towards Yuya, so she couldn't miss this opportunity to receive the bonus. She placed her trust in Yuya, hoping he would cook the best dish in this competition. Cooking was too simple for Yuya. From the operation of separating fish meat from bones to cutting vegetables, to the cooking processes, all were completed by Yuya quickly and efficiently. From fried dishes to hot pot, everything was incredibly delicious. And when they put it in their mouths, the whole group froze for 5 seconds. No one expressed any feeling, making him a bit worried. The tipsy teacher was holding a bottle of alcohol, swaying. As she passed by, she really wanted to taste the food that Yuya had made. And when they put it in their mouths, they all suddenly woke up and praised the dish that Yuya had made as the absolute best. Yuya was happy because before, he only lived alone and never ate with anyone. So now, when seeing everyone's smiles, he felt very satisfied. The teacher couldn't believe it. Normally, the academy had top-class chefs cooking, but now, eating his dish, they couldn't stop praising it. After eating to their heart's content, Miss Sawada surprisingly wanted to marry Yuya, making everyone there open their mouths in astonishment. Sawada said that because she lived alone, she was very messy and didn't know how to cook. Moreover, she was buried in research all day, so at this age, she still hadn't found a man to marry her. Therefore, someone who was both handsome and cooked deliciously like Yuya. If she didn't marry him quickly, someone else would steal him away. Beside her, Keed was very angry and couldn't let Yuya fall into the teacher's hands. The little girl hadn't done anything yet, so no one was allowed to touch Yuya. The male teachers saw this and advised Sawada to pick up her dignity, because Yuya was just a student. But Sawada was far from giving up on this delicious treat, saying she would wait for Yuya to grow up a bit more before consuming him. She even hugged Yuya to her heart, causing him to suffocate, making the male teachers speechless. Akira, standing nearby, was also jealous when his friend was lucky enough to have his head buried between 2 grapefruits. Of course, little sister Keed had to pull the person she liked away from this teacher. After hugging to her heart's content, Sawada also released Yuya so he could still breathe, or else he would suffocate. Yuya immediately teleported home to feed his pet because staying there any longer might kill him because of her heart. While feeding Nai, he also confided in the little one about the new changes in his own life. After finishing, he also returned to the picnic spot. As soon as he entered the bathroom, everyone focused their gaze on Yuya, making him not understand what was going on. Akira was jealous that his friend possessed such a muscular six-pack body. In the female bathroom, the girls began to confide in each other. Seeing that Keed had 2 round, juicy grapefruits, Jin quickly showed her pervy side. At this point, not grabbing them would be a sin against the world. Such enormous goods, and still running track. How could the male students bear it? The students saw this and were extremely jealous. But they still judged that the teachers were bigger than Keed's. Then they recounted the teacher's confession to Yuya. After that, they thought Yuya had a passionate love for big breasts. The next day, when they returned to the campsite, everyone's things had been destroyed. Akira seemed to know something, so he looked a bit worried. It turned out he had seen bear footprints nearby. But they still had to continue into the forest to find ingredients. Everyone was still working as usual, while Akira clearly saw signs of the bear's appearance, fearfully thinking he was about to be bear bait again. As soon as he said that, the bear also appeared from the bush, causing the students to panic and run away. The teachers were trying to direct them to escape, and Miss Sawada was trying to get Yuya's group to run away. But unfortunately, she tripped and fell, thinking that this time the teacher was done for. But before the bear could touch her, Yuya had come back to help. He dodged the attack while hugging the bear and wrestling with it. With his invincible strength, he knocked out the bear before the astonished eyes of everyone around. Miss Sawada was about to scold Yuya for risking his life, but because he had saved her life, she thanked him and vowed to repay him with her body. Seeing the bear unconscious, everyone took the opportunity to tie it up. Then they handed it over to the academy's facility for nurturing. Caori said that from now on, this bear would become a house bear. If it attacked humans, she promised to treat the entire academy to delicious bear meat, making the bear sweat profusely. So the bear was safely protected from humans, and Yuya's picnic trip had ended. Today was the day that Yuya had scheduled to meet the king, so he had entered the other world and slaughtered a few monsters to warm up before setting off. This time, Yuya had tried a hammer and found it to be incredibly powerful beyond imagination. One hit, and they vanished without much talk. And the item that the monster had just dropped was a hat that looked quite cool. But he didn't know that behind him, a mysterious rabbit was following. It seemed to be looking for Yuya as well. At this moment, Owen's army had arrived and saw that Yuya looked very intimidating, so he had to take off his hat in case they were too afraid to approach. The princess was still boy crazy, so she complimented him profusely. She then thanked him for accepting the king's invitation. Just as they were about to leave, Nai sensed danger. It suddenly pushed the princess down just as a tree nearby fell. But Yuya was quick to chop it into pieces. Seeing that someone wanted to assassinate the princess, Yuya told the guards to take care of her. He then used invisibility to find the assassin and gave him a kick in the back. This caused the person to fall, hit their head on a rock, and pass out. When the mask fell off, he was quite surprised to see that it was Luna. He didn't understand why she would try to assassinate the princess like that. Yuya said that this girl was a good person, so he wanted to take her to his house for treatment. Seeing that she was about to go to Yuya's house, the princess was very happy and agreed right away. She didn't even want to return to the royal capital anymore. After that, the two of them ran straight to Yuya's house. Feeling that it was taking too much time, he used teleportation magic to get home quickly. At this point, the princess was in the carriage, having many questions she wanted to ask Yuya, so he would slowly explain to her. After hearing Yuya briefly explain their relationship, the princess also temporarily understood, but she didn't know what the magic just now looked like that could transport Yuya from the forest all the way here. According to the princess, teleportation magic was classified as legendary and only existed in fairy tales. If anyone could use this magic, it would turn the world upside down, even cause wars, so Yuya had to promise the princess that from now on, he wouldn't use this magic carelessly anymore. The princess knew that Luna was pretending to sleep, so she said she didn't need to act anymore. Yuya also realized it, but because he was too kind-hearted, he pretended not to notice anything. At this point, the princess asked what Luna's purpose was when she attempted the assassination. She saw that Luna seemed indifferent, so Yuya had to speak up that he also wanted to know more about her. Yuya asked, so Luna also opened up more. She began to tell about her difficult past, having to steal to survive. During difficult times, she was saved by a stranger. He taught Luna to read and write, and later trained her to become a professional assassin. The princess immediately recognized them as the Shadow Society, those who specialized in accepting illegal missions and committing crimes in this country. Luna added that she had been working for the Shadow Society for a long time and had the nickname Manhunter. And a few days ago, she had received a mission to assassinate the princess. But now that the mission had failed, Luna had a death sentence on her head. If she wasn't sentenced by the country, she would later be hunted down by the Shadow Society for elimination. After hearing this, Yuya felt sad that Luna spoke such painful words. The time they spent together was brief, but Yuya had truly considered her a close friend. The princess, feeling ignored, had to speak up. The princess said that now that Luna had failed, she should switch to being the princess's bodyguard. Because anyway, Luna's assassination attempt was only known to the people here. But Luna felt that she didn't deserve this because she had already assassinated many people before. Luna's hands were now stained with blood and were no longer pure. But according to the princess, these assassin hands were too smooth compared to regulations. When asked how her skin could be so beautiful, Luna accidentally mentioned Yuya's magical bathtub. At this point, Luna wanted to deny it, but it was too late because the princess had heard everything. But first, the princess had to officially accept Luna as her protector. After that, the princess immediately ordered Luna to reveal everything about the bathtub just now. So Luna began to boast that Yuya had a super luxury bathtub item. When soaking in it, it had the effect of restoring health and was very good for the skin. Seeing this, the princess immediately wanted to try this magical bathtub. Feeling that there were too few people, the princess invited Yuya to join in for fun. But Yuya wanted to maintain his purity, so he didn't dare to enter. Meanwhile, Owen's knights were still being chased all over the forest by goblins, their mouths praying for the princess's safety. But she was comfortably soaking in the bathtub with Luna. When she heard the princess ask if she liked Yuya, Luna became shy and didn't dare to admit it. But when the princess said she would marry Yuya, Luna became very jealous. At this point, Luna could no longer deny her feelings for Yuya. The princess, seeing this, sent a challenge to Luna to see who would completely capture this guy. Luna, not one to back down, couldn't let Yuya fall into the princess's hands. She immediately accepted this challenge, and the two would become each other's rivals. After a bath, it was time for dinner. To prove that she was a capable wife, the princess raised her hand to request entry into the kitchen. But even with just a potato, she didn't know how to cut it. She was waving the knife wildly, almost sending Yuya to meet his grandfather. Fortunately, Yuya was unharmed. Otherwise, the girls would have had to go hungry. The dinner prepared by Yuya made the two girls eat while praising its deliciousness. But when they saw that Yuya was even more delicious, the princess demanded to eat him too. As for Luna, she also didn't want to be outdone, so she wanted Yuya to feed her. Feeling that he had kicked Luna a bit hard earlier, he now wanted to make it up to her. Seeing this, the princess became jealous, so she ordered Yuya to feed her as well. And after gathering all his courage, Yuya finally managed to please these two girls. Because it was already very late, they had to go to rest to set off early tomorrow. The next morning, as soon as they reached the edge of the forest, they saw Owen and his people waiting. Seeing that the princess was still safe, he finally dared to breathe a sigh of relief. Yuya then introduced his pet to Owen, so he also thanked Nai for saving the princess's life. But she accidentally mentioned that yesterday Luna was the one who had tried to assassinate her. Luna was speechless, and the soldiers immediately drew their swords toward her. Yuya said that they had already reconciled, but Owen didn't believe it until the princess said that yesterday, the two had even bathed and slept together. Then he temporarily put his sword away. At this point, Yuya had something to say to Owen, which was that today he had to go to school, so he couldn't go to the royal capital to meet the king anymore. Previously, Yuya had scheduled to leave yesterday, but it had been missed. After hearing this, Owen couldn't make things difficult for Yuya, so he instructed that whenever he was free, just go straight down the road ahead, and he would reach the royal capital. Having to part with Yuya, Luna felt very reluctant, so when she had just gotten on the horse and gone a distance, she jumped down and ran very quickly toward Yuya, then gave him a surprise kiss, making the princess very jealous but unable to do anything. Luna said that this was just a kiss to thank him for helping her all this time. Thinking about the kiss just now made Yuya feel very confused, so he had to take a bath to regain his composure. Before returning to school, suddenly next to Yuya appeared a cute piglet no less adorable than Nai, and Yuya's status panel suddenly showed that it had been tamed by him. When Yuya used appraisal, he saw that its current level was 490, and it also had a skill called Holy Domain, which had a very strong healing ability. So Yuya was very happy and thought of a name for this little pig. Seeing that its fur looked very bright, he named it Akatsuki. In Japanese, it means dawn. Nai brought a clock to Yuya and reminded him to return early to go to school. Today, Miss Sawada again announced another competition related to her bonus. It was the annual soccer tournament organized by the school between classes. So now physical education class was used as time for students to practice. Because he didn't know the rules of soccer, Yuya took the position of goalkeeper. On the field, Ryo single-handedly destroyed the opponent's formation and continuously scored goals. Jin felt that if there was only Ryo as a source of strength, they might not be able to win. So Jin asked Keed to bounce a bit to show off her two extremely huge bouncy balls. But the result was that all the home team had their eyes glued to Keed, giving Akira the opportunity to dribble the ball. However, when he kicked toward the goal, Yuya used his extremely fast speed to stop the ball, then used all his strength to throw it toward the other goal, making the opponent's goalkeeper not even dare to put his face out to block it. The teacher and everyone else could only gape, speechless. Teacher Yuya was too strong. The teacher didn't let him play anymore and switched him to table tennis. On the way back, he met a person named Kuzosawa and his director. Seeing that the photos Yuya had taken before were very suitable, the two invited him to join the entertainment company, but Yuya immediately declined. For him, being a student was the most fun. After hearing this, the director was very confused because the opportunity to enter the entertainment industry was extremely difficult. Yet Yuya wasn't interested. At this moment, the model sister Mayu appeared to stop that difficult director. The two friends who witnessed this couldn't believe their eyes. Yuya could know a famous model like her. They had even taken photos together that were on magazine covers. The director immediately assigned the task of persuading Yuya to Mayu. However, Caori also happened to arrive when she was distributing flyers for the school's sports festival. Seeing the flyer in her hand, the director suddenly thought of another plan, which was to infiltrate the sports festival to secretly photograph Yuya and then transfer the images to the publisher. This way, Yuya wouldn't need to join the company, but he would still be featured on magazine covers, leaving Yuya speechless, not knowing how to stop this lady. Returning to the other world, Yuya continued to slay monsters to practice and familiarize himself with magic. But no matter how much he practiced, he couldn't combine weapons and magic together. With 2 hands and 2 pet animals, Yuya didn't know how to become stronger. Suddenly, he sensed something in the forest and ran deep inside. Seeing a huge pig in front of him, he thought Akatsuki had just transformed. But when he realized the piglet was still behind him, he was immediately knocked away by this wild boar. Yuya didn't understand how this pig, only at level 10, could be so strong. And just as he was about to use a recovery potion, the wild boar butted him again and attacked continuously. Yuya thought he would be cut down here, but surprisingly, there was a voice behind him saying it would help him. And the pig took a kick so hard that it stuck to a tree trunk. In front of him now was a rabbit that could speak human language. Yuya and his 2 pet animals hadn't finished being surprised when this rabbit gave the pig a kick that made it vanish immediately. Even the forest full of sturdy trees was blown away after that attack. When Yuya used appraisal, he saw that the rabbit was only at level 4, but had terrifying skills. At this point, the rabbit suggested that Yuya and his 2 pet animals demonstrate a kick for it to see. Akatsuki volunteered first, but its legs were too short, so its kick had no strength at all. With Nai's kick, the rabbit commented that although it was immature, it had great potential. As for Yuya, after his demonstration, the little rabbit realized that he also had talent but didn't know how to develop it. So the little rabbit would demonstrate once for him to see. After warming up, it performed an extremely powerful kick, causing all the sturdy tree trunks in the forest to be pierced with a hole. Thanks to Master Rabbit's teaching, Yuya had been practicing kicking continuously for many hours. Seeing that this disciple had somewhat mastered it, the instructor suggested that they practice fighting together. Yuya didn't understand why Master Rabbit was training him like this, and he said that he had chosen Yuya as his successor. But when he heard about the successor, Yuya didn't understand anything. So Master Rabbit began to tell the story that he had been chosen as one of the saints of humanity, and their purpose was to fight against evil forces to protect this world. Seeing that Yuya had great potential, he had chosen him as the inheritor of his power. That means if he accepted to be the successor, Yuya would become a true saint. Or if Yuya didn't want to be a deity, then later when fighting against evil forces, Master Rabbit would also have an ally. Yuya said that he didn't want to be any deity as it would be tiring, but because in this world, Yuya had made many friends, so he also wanted to become a bit stronger to protect them along with his 2 pet animals. After hearing this, Master Rabbit decided to continue training him, and in return, Yuya would have to teach him magic. The deal was established, so after that, Yuya had to go through many rigorous training sessions from the master, and his mission would be to find a way to defeat this giant wild boar. It was even stronger than the one he had faced yesterday, so this was an opportunity for him to get revenge. Master Rabbit added that the evil forces were many times stronger than this pig, so if he couldn't defeat it, he would only die in battle when facing the evil ones. From the item chest, Yuya took out the whip from before, then tightened it around the wild boar, and pulled it up into the air, finally slamming it hard to the ground, causing the pig to evaporate immediately. Defeating the giant wild boar made Yuya as happy as if it were a festival, and the items it dropped were all of knight rank, proving that this pig had a terrifying power. But Master Rabbit said that the evil ones were of legendary rank, meaning they were several ranks higher than this wild boar. And the reward that Yuya received after eliminating this pig was body evolution. Although Yuya's outward appearance didn't change at all, his physical strength along with his skills had been raised to a new level. And after the training, Master Rabbit said goodbye to Yuya and reminded him to go home early to rest. Having more power was worth celebrating. But Yuya was still worried, fearing that in the upcoming sports festival, he would use too much power. Before the competition, the director had already arrived to capture photographs of Yuya and his opponent in table tennis. Today, it was a tall, muscular man. Yuya thought that looking at this build and saying he was a high school student, who would believe it? This guy looked exactly like a gangster on the outside, but his table tennis skills were extremely good. Just a simple ball serve, and Yuya couldn't block it. Feeling that this opponent was somewhat similar to the bear from before, Yuya decided to use all his strength, so his ball hit caused the table to have a hole. And Yuya proactively stopped the game here. Otherwise, this muscular guy would be hospitalized. But just as he escaped the table tennis competition, Keed brought 2 other balls to meet Yuya, and she led him to the volleyball court because they were short of people here. But the result was that one of Yuya's spikes broke the entire court floor, causing both teams to stop playing, and Keed's 2 balls were captured by the entertainment company without missing a single shot. Somehow, when photographing Yuya, Keed's 2 balls kept getting into the lens like this. Back at the company, the director would have to raise the salary for the photographers. Yuya started to get discouraged because his strength couldn't be controlled anymore, but surprisingly, he was able to find his place to perform. It turned out that Caori's tennis teammate had been seriously injured when a racket flew into his face, and the opponent also reminded Yuya to be careful, or he would follow the guy from earlier. Thinking that if Caori competed in this sport, she must be very good, but her ball serve was very poor. Perhaps Caori was annoyed with the photographers, so she almost gave them a racket to the face. Yuya now realized that Caori was the culprit who sent her teammate to the hospital, so Yuya had to carry Caori as they played 1 against 2 with the opposing team. Caori also wanted to show off, but she couldn't hit the ball and only threw the racket at the audience. So Yuya made the final move to end the match and conveniently caught Caori to prevent her from falling. And after that situation, Caori really wanted to do something to thank Yuya. But Yuya said that he didn't need any thanks from Caori, because just being with Caori made Yuya very happy already. After hearing this, Caori thought that Yuya had some feelings for her, so Caori told Yuya to close his eyes, then ran close to Yuya and gave him a kiss on the cheek. But to Yuya, he only smelled a very fragrant scent. When asking Caori what she had just done, she only said it was a secret. Meanwhile, in the other world, Master Rabbit was fighting with a girl carrying evil power. But thanks to the magic that Yuya had taught, he was still fighting evenly with her. Just hearing the name Yuya, this girl immediately changed her target to him to see how strong this person was. Temporarily, playing with the rabbit today was enough, so the girl would retreat to find and eliminate Yuya first. Although the rabbit wanted to stop her, his power wasn't enough, so he planned to pass on more skills to Yuya in the near future. In the real world, the director was very pleased because Yuya's beautiful moments had been captured, and she was sure that his magazines would sell very well. Meanwhile, today Caori had come to Yuya's house to tutor him, but with a girl by his side, Yuya couldn't concentrate at all. Suddenly, Caori needed to use the bathroom, so she asked Yuya for permission to go for a bit. But the way she entered was through the door to the other world, so Yuya had to run after her. At this point, Yuya told her that this was a door leading to another world. It was hard to believe, but this door only accepted Yuya to pass through. So no matter how hard Caori tried, she couldn't go through. Yuya further explained that in that world, he could use magic, and he immediately created a water ball, making Caori unable to believe her eyes. Besides magic, he also had many other powerful abilities from the other world, so he had been able to defeat the school thugs and save Caori and her friends from the fire. Yuya also wanted to show Caori the other world, so he invited her to go in there. Of course, Caori agreed, and the two held hands and went through the space door to the other world, making Caori overwhelmed by its beauty. Yuya also let her know that Nai and Akatsuki were animals from this world. Suddenly, Caori felt startled when her status panel suddenly appeared, and Yuya explained that in this world, there was a concept called stats. According to Yuya, Kaori's stats were much higher than when he first set foot in this world, and he added that when he came here, he had leveled up. Along with that, his body had changed. Previously, Yuya was just a fat guy, but thanks to this world, he now had such a handsome appearance. But Caori didn't care about that. She wanted Yuya to take her for a walk around, but Yuya thought this place was full of monsters, so going outside might get them killed immediately. Although Caori really wanted to go, this time it probably wouldn't be possible, so she made a promise with Yuya that in the future, he must take her to visit this world. Yuya also wanted Caori to keep the secret of the other world and not tell anyone. Caori agreed right away and considered this as a secret between the two of them. And two people keeping a secret together was no different from being lovers. So Caori thought she was about to capture Yuya. On the princess's side, she had returned to the royal capital. But the king didn't see Yuya, so he still couldn't question him. Beside her, Luna admitted that because she had attempted to assassinate the princess, Yuya had been late for his appointment. After hearing this, he couldn't believe that someone who had tried to assassinate the princess was still alive and well. Picking up his sword, the king rushed straight to Luna to deal with her. But Luna, with her threads, had locked both of his hands. Beside them, the princess said that she had already accepted Luna as her protector. So if the king continued with this attitude, his beloved daughter would stop playing with him altogether. Just hearing the words, "not playing with his daughter," made the king panic. So he had to accept Luna as his daughter's protector and asked her to remove these threads. It seemed that the princess's words still caused the king psychological trauma. But it didn't end there. The princess accidentally mentioned that she had stayed overnight at Yuya's house, so the king flew into a rage, thinking that Yuya had deflowered his daughter. Even if he was the princess's benefactor, this behavior could not be forgiven. So the next time he met Yuya, the king would send him to the netherworld. Seeing the king angry, Owen tried to reassure him that the princess was surely still a virgin. But clearly, since Owen wasn't there, the king couldn't believe his words. The prince from before had received news that Luna had failed in her assassination attempt, and afterward, she had even become the princess's bodyguard. And his subordinate also informed him that soon Yuya would come to the palace to visit the king. Recognizing this as the best opportunity to eliminate both the king and the princess, the prince gave his subordinate a ball called the Wind Demon Barrier. After using it, those caught in the spell would be trapped inside the barrier and would not be able to use magic. He thought that after using it on Yuya, he would be able to defeat Owen and Luna. Then he could easily slaughter the princess and the king with ease. And if the plan failed, he would just pin all the blame on Yuya. The sports festival had just ended, so Yuya had 3 extra days off, and he decided to take this opportunity to go to the royal capital for a trip. Yuya then entered a city in the other world to visit, but going out without money meant he couldn't buy anything. So he went to a merchant guild to sell some items. As soon as they heard the name Yuya, the merchant thought he was a foreign nobleman. But he didn't want to ask more and only cared about what Yuya wanted to sell. Yuya immediately took out a bunch of Japanese spices from his item chest, because this was the first time they had seen something so beautiful and unusual. The merchant paid him up to 100 gold coins, but Yuya still didn't know the value of money here. So the merchant let him know that this amount was enough for him to enjoy life for 20 years without having to do anything. Seeing that this merchant was very fair, the next time he needed money, he would come back to him. With a pile of money in hand, Yuya rented a horse carriage to go to the royal capital, and after a night, he had arrived at the busiest place in this country. And the king's castle in front of him was extremely luxurious, making Yuya feel overwhelmed. As soon as he arrived, he met Owen, and the first thing he did was lead him to have an audience with the king. After hearing this, Yuya was very worried because he didn't know the ceremonial procedures. Owen reassured him that the king was very easygoing, so he had nothing to fear. Although Yuya thought it was a bit suspicious, he still had to follow. As the door opened, the king and everyone had been waiting for him. The two girls beside him made Yuya feel more at ease. But as soon as he bowed to greet the king immediately cursed him as a wretched, despicable man who dared to deceive his daughter. After hearing this, everyone was speechless. It was incomprehensible how, as a king, he could speak like a thug. But afterward, he calmed down and introduced himself as the king of the Asoli kingdom. But it seemed he was still upset with Yuya, so he blamed him for coming empty-handed without any gifts. Yuya misunderstood, thinking gift meant fruit, so he immediately took out a set of paradise bedding from his item chest, making the princess extremely delighted. Seeing this, the king picked up his sword and went straight to Yuya. It turned out that in the king's mind, Yuya was always having intentions toward his daughter and wanted to take her to paradise bliss today. Owen saw this and stopped the king, explaining that it was just a custom from Yuya's homeland. The princess then explained that in this country, giving bedding meant intending to marry someone's daughter. So Yuya felt very embarrassed by his recent action. At this moment, the prince's assassins appeared at the palace. The leader quickly used the wind demon barrier ball to imprison everyone inside. He said that from now on, no one would be able to use magic anymore. But Luna was a physical fighter, so she easily subdued these guys, and Yuya didn't even bother to use magic. He just rushed forward and kicked each one without missing. And the last one also took a punch from him and passed out on the spot. Seeing that Yuya was very strong, the princess ran to hug him and praised him endlessly. Luna couldn't let the princess have an advantage, so she also ran to pull her away. And the situation of two wives and one husband caught the eyes of the king, making him extremely bitter. After checking the bodies of the assassins, Owen discovered a badge, and the king immediately recognized it as belonging to Jigga. He was his son, as well as the princess's elder brother. Because this person was a threat to the kingdom, Owen asked Yuya to help out. Yuya was very worried, not knowing what had happened in this kingdom. After experiencing the assassination attempt on the king of the kingdom, they realized that the king's son was planning a rebellion, and this information was almost heard by every servant. After recalling Owen's request for his help, he went to the princess to ask for more information. Just then, she had just left her room. Because Yuya didn't know much about this kingdom, the princess planned to take Yuya for a tour around the royal capital. But Luna saw this and stopped the princess, not letting her take advantage. Luna said that the princess was the target of assassins and needed strict protection, so she had to stay home, and the only person allowed to guide Yuya was Luna. Witnessing the two girls fighting over Yuya, Owen said that he would guide him, which would be the fairest, but the result was known to everyone. These two would never agree. It had been a long time since they had the opportunity to go out with him, and missing it would be foolish. Yuya was again accompanied by the two girls, who still had to hide in the shadows to observe, mainly to ensure the princess's safety. But now each wanted to go to a different place. Girls really had to compete with each other, making Yuya not know whom to follow. The princess wanted to go to the jewel shop, but Luna wanted to go to the blacksmith. And at this moment, they were too conspicuous because of their noble dress style. Yuya was only interested in the Adventurers Guild here, because originally in this world, he often fought with monsters, so he also wanted to try being an adventurer. And the person who knew the most about the Adventurers Guild was Luna, so this time she would guide the way. Seeing the two go to register, the princess stopped them because she was afraid of losing Yuya to Luna. Seeing that she was winning, Luna teased her, saying if she was afraid of losing him, she should register as well. The princess couldn't do anything. Inside, there were two people doing the procedures, filling in information and declaring their background. Also, he didn't know if his two magical pet babies needed to be registered, or if just the master's registration was enough. When it came to his main attribute, Yuya didn't know what to write. If he wrote all his attributes now, this world would probably be in chaos. Not to mention that the princess had instructed him not to reveal his teleportation magic, so Yuya only dared to write down water, fire, and wind attributes as the safest. Because in this world, everyone possessed one of these attributes, so there was nothing strange. After filling in the basic information, they had to declare their own magic power, which was measured by a crystal ball, so the guide brought out the equipment for everyone to measure. Yuya didn't want to reveal his magic power level, but the receptionist said this was based on mandatory spirit. because some adventurers often hid their skills. This guild needed accurate data, and it would change color according to the amount of magic power the person performing had. Luna immediately placed her hand on it, and only a pale yellow color appeared. This girl was an assassin, not a magic user, so of course it wasn't her forte. When it was Yuya's turn to place his hand and transmit magic power, the ball immediately shattered, causing everyone at the guild hall to widen their eyes in surprise. Yuya thought he might have to compensate for this ball. This one would likely require a hefty payment, but the receptionist said that since he didn't do it intentionally, it was okay. After checking Yuya's registration form, she was extremely surprised, because he could use 3 attributes identical to the characters in Legends. Ordinary people being able to use magic alone was already a talent. Yuya thought it was fortunate that he hadn't declared all his attributes earlier. Otherwise, this entire country would have been shocked. After completing the registration, the receptionist gave Yuya and Luna membership cards for the guild. As newcomers, they would start from the lowest rank, F. After that, this girl was quite dedicated to providing basic guidance about this place for him to understand the mechanisms, and Yuya's job was to check the mission board to accept commissions. At this moment, a drunk woman approached and hugged Yuya tightly, to the helplessness of the 2 girls. This woman introduced herself as Yina. Because Yuya was the first person to break the ball, he must be very strong, making this sister extremely interested in him. So next time, Yina wanted to accept a commission mission with Yuya. Seeing Yuya being approached by Yina made the princess feel uneasy, so she also wanted to become an adventurer to protect Yuya from that scheming woman. But Luna immediately stopped that foolish action, because if the princess continued to be stubborn, Knight Owen would probably have a stroke. However, the princess still hadn't given up her intention, saying that from now on, all missions would be chosen by her. The first mission that the newcomers received was to collect herbs, but the princess still volunteered to come along, making Owen extremely tired, because she was the target of assassinations but was still relaxed enough to go out like this. Suddenly, the princess came up with the idea to compete with Luna. Whoever collected more herbs would have the exclusive right to Yuya for a day. Finding this game very interesting, the 2 girls left Yuya behind and began to compete with each other, making Yuya so bored that he didn't even want to speak. After a while of collecting herbs, the princess intended to use Owen as well. He continued to pick some excellent medicinal herbs that his pets showed him. After that, he was so engrossed in picking that when he turned around, he didn't see Owen anywhere. While he was helping the 2 girls determine the winner, Owen ran back. He reported that he had found Prince Jigga's location. So Yuya immediately got on a horse and followed him there, leaving the princess on the grassland for Luna to protect. When they arrived, it was an abandoned house. Seeing it very quiet, Owen thought that the advance team had captured Jigga. But as soon as the door opened, a knife flew out, hitting a soldier's leg, and inside, Jigga was controlling a soldier while the others could only stand and watch. Seeing this, Nai immediately rushed forward and bit Jigga's arm. He was now cornered. Owen advised Jigga to surrender quickly to receive leniency, but he threatened that if anyone came close, he would log out on the spot. Seeing that Jigga was at a dead end, Yuya had to step in. He ran quickly to Jigga, making him panic. Jigga loudly threatened to commit suicide, but kept swinging his knife at Yuya. Taking this opportunity, Akatsuki rushed forward and blocked his legs, making him fall flat on his face. Seeing all 3 coordinating their fight very effectively, Owen also showed admiration. But while they were capturing Jigga, there was a strong wind, and a strange person appeared there. It was Ruki. Jigga thought this little girl would save him, but she only considered him as trash. It turned out this fool had been used by Ruki, becoming a pawn for her entertainment to assassinate the princess and cause wars around the world. But Jigga's mission had failed, so he would be eliminated on the spot. When Owen ran to save Jigga, he was stopped by an arrow flying from behind, thinking that Ruki had accomplices, but the little girl said she was alone, and the arrows would be controlled by Ruki to eliminate everyone present in this room. Owen intended to do something to stop Ruki, but she easily read his movements. Yuya, standing beside him, immediately cast a spell and blew away all of her arrows. As soon as she heard the name Yuya, Ruki recognized him as the target she was looking for, so she intended to use her evil power to finish Yuya. But because she had used too much energy when fighting with a rabbit, Ruki temporarily retreated and promised to fight him another time. Yuya was very curious about who this girl was and why she was so strong. Everyone was very worried. not expecting that this world had someone stronger than Yuya. They didn't know who this girl was and how terrifying her power could be. At this moment, Owen entered the room and announced that the king was preparing to punish his son, Prince Jigga, and they also wanted Yuya to participate in the interrogation. With the princess's approval, he also accepted Owen's request. At this point, they had brought Jigga into the palace, then removed his mask and clothes, revealing a body covered in scars. Seeing this, both the king and the princess turned away, unable to look. According to Jigga, he had been involved in Lishia's magic outburst incident, which was why his body had become like this. Although the wounds from that incident had been thoroughly treated, because of Lishia's terrifying magic power, his mind had become distorted. In Jigga's thoughts at that time were all desires for destruction. So to suppress this desire, he had made his body like this, and Jigga had died. The king said that he didn't help him but instead isolated him. From a handsome face, he had now become a monster that everyone feared. So Jigga had harbored this hatred and sought to assassinate Lishia by any means. Now living on was meaningless for him, so he just wanted to be sentenced quickly. Seeing this, Yuya had an opinion for the king and immediately took out a recovery potion from his item chest. He used the potion on Jigga's body, causing his wounds to gradually heal. No one there could believe their eyes. Jigga was extremely surprised when the burn marks had completely disappeared. His handsome face had also returned, making him very bewildered. Yuya also revealed that this medicine was made from herbal ingredients, which surprised everyone because this was the recovery grass that only existed in legends. So the king thanked Yuya for using such a precious item to save his son. But Jigga thought that even if he was saved, he couldn't escape the death sentence for attempting to assassinate the princess. However, Lishia immediately forgave her brother without any conditions. Hearing this, Jigga himself was surprised that his little sister made such a simple decision. The king had stopped Lishia because Jigga had hired the Shadow Society to assassinate her. But this daughter was so stubborn that even the king had to soften his heart. Fearing that his daughter would hate him, he also had to agree to spare Jigga. And finally, Lishia expressed her wish that she really wanted the siblings to get along like before, so Jigga shed tears in emotion. After everything, Jigga thanked Yuya, and the king also promised to reward him. So the two girls kept fighting to be the reward for this young man, leaving everyone speechless. Jigga had suggested giving all his territory to Yuya as a reward for him. Along with that was conferring upon him the title of Knight of this kingdom. After a tiring day, Yuya had returned to his private room to take a nap. As soon as he lay down, he had a nightmare. In it, he had fought with Ruki, equally matched. But in the end, Yuya was defeated, causing him to wake up startled. Although it was just a dream, it was also an omen that this girl was not easy to deal with at all. Back in the real world, today Yuya was still going to school as usual. But when invited by friends to go out, he declined everyone. Even Caori, he also declined, because in his mind, he only remembered what Jigga had said before, that he had witnessed Ruki's power and advised him to be very careful. And according to Master Rabbit, this girl carried evil power. Even a deity like him couldn't defeat her. So now, every time he returned from school, Yuya would enter the other world to practice and enhance his strength. But at this moment, Ruki had appeared and launched an attack toward Yuya. And when asked by Yuya, she said that because Yuya interfered with her revenge plan, she had to eliminate him. As soon as she finished speaking, she shot arrows toward Yuya, forcing him to dodge. But when Yuya jumped up, she was already behind him from some point. Caori, having not been able to go out with Yuya for a long time, was very worried. This time, she would surprise him with a visit and use the excuse of studying together. But afterward, she had gone through the door to the other world. Although Yuya had warned that this forest had monsters, Caori still went through. Suddenly, Caori heard a loud noise nearby. At this moment, the battle between Ruki and Yuya was very intense. Although Yuya repeatedly asked why Ruki had to take revenge, she didn't bother to mention it. Yuya was also very confused, but he couldn't stand still and let Ruki attack forever. And this time, Yuya had switched to a new armor to combine attacks with Nai. This armor increased the speed of both, so Yuya had kicked Ruki up into the air, and Nai also, from above, gave a kick that sent Ruki flying down. But the previous attack didn't injure her, so she picked up her bow again, forcing Yuya to run around to dodge. At this moment, Caori appeared, greatly surprising Yuya. Ruki then shifted her attack toward Caori, but because her luck was very high, the arrow turned back to where Yuya could block this shot. But after a while of fighting, he had lost a lot of strength, and Ruki was standing behind Yuya with her bow and arrow pointing straight at him. So Yuya thought that if he couldn't block this shot, he would probably reunite with his grandfather. Fortunately, while Yuya was screaming to defend himself, Master Rabbit had appeared just in time to kick away Ruki's attack, and the rabbit said that he knew Ruki's identity as well as the holy bow she had inherited from her master. At this point, Ruki revealed that her master had protected humans, but they had betrayed him, so now she would exterminate humans to take revenge. Master Rabbit said that he couldn't ignore someone with the ambition to destroy the world, and Ruki also didn't hesitate, so she picked up her bow to continue fighting. And during the battle, the rabbit continuously reminded Yuya to use his feet to kick, but the arrows from the holy bow made it impossible for Yuya to get close. Master Rabbit had used evasive movements and told Yuya to follow. Ruki's next arrow had turned into a tornado flying straight toward Yuya, but thanks to the master's skillful movements, both had managed to dodge and kick away this tornado. While not paying attention, Nai had bitten her leg, and the rabbit gave her a kick straight to the face. Ruki had been seriously injured, but those who killed her master, she would never forgive, so she used her evil power to destroy everything around, and the energy flow from this power had caused Yuya to cough blood. Master Rabbit continued to rush in to fight with Ruki, now that her speed had increased significantly. Beside him, Yuya was very impressed that the rabbit could fight evenly with Ruki. At this moment, Akatsuki had emerged from the invisibility cloak. Then the piglet ran straight toward Ruki and performed its holy domain skill. And when it just touched Ruki, all of her evil power had been nullified. Master Rabbit also realized that this was not an ordinary pig, and Yuya had taken this opportunity to knock Ruki unconscious and used his hand to catch her. The rabbit said that Akatsuki was a sacred item that could confront evil ones, so if beside Akatsuki, one couldn't use their evil power anymore. After that, he handed Ruki to Yuya to deal with and ran away. When she woke up, Yuya asked about her master. Ruki said that he was a kind person and full of love for her. After hearing this, Yuya thought that she was just a pitiful girl. Caori had now come to Yuya's place and surprisingly brought along a giant wild boar. So Yuya had taken his spear to throw toward her, causing the wild boar to evaporate on the spot. Seeing that she was still very scared, he had placed Ruki on the ground and explained everything. Caori knew that this was his daily life in this other world. And here, Yuya had leveled up, becoming invincible in the real world, so it was like cheating, and he hoped Caori wouldn't blame him. However, Caori was still very gentle and said that since being saved by Yuya, she had understood everything about his character. After a while, the princess and Luna had come to Yuya's place and gotten acquainted with Caori, and Ruki had gone to Yuya's real world and become a new student in his class.